The strange thing about walking away from something you built is that it doesn't disappear. It keeps going. Sometimes better. Sometimes worse. But it keeps moving forward without asking whether you're ready to see it. For the first year after I left the company, I avoided anything that might remind me of it. I stopped driving past the warehouse. I muted old employees on social media. I even stopped reading industry newsletters for a while. Not out of anger. Mostly because I didn't know what I would feel. The company had started as a side project in my late 20s. Nothing glamorous, just a regional supply logistics service that slowly grew into something stable. I handled the operations, built the client list, negotiated the contracts, hired the first employees. My parents liked telling people it was a family venture, even though most of the work happened before they ever showed interest. Then, about 6 years in, something shifted. The company started doing well enough that it looked impressive from the outside. That's when my sister Emily began appearing in meetings. At first it was casual, learning the business, sitting in on calls, helping with branding. Our parents loved the optics of it. 2 siblings running a growing company together. But gradually the language around the company changed. I was still handling everything operational, but introductions started sounding different. Emily is leading the company now. She has such strong vision. The first time I heard that sentence in a meeting, I assumed it was just exaggeration. Then it kept happening. A press release went out announcing a leadership transition. I saw it online like everyone else. Emily smiling in the photo. My name mentioned once near the bottom as the founder who would be stepping back to focus on new opportunities. No one had told me beforehand. I didn't yell when I confronted my parents. I remember my father saying something practical, almost bored. Emily is better with people. The company needs that. And my mother adding, "You're not the type who needs the spotlight." The strangest part was how calm I felt while packing my office 2 weeks later. Employees watched quietly as I boxed up files and books. A few asked if I was really leaving. I told them yes. Then I walked out. For a while, I assumed the company would do fine. It had good contracts, solid infrastructure, a team that knew what they were doing. But over time, small things started reaching me. A supplier I used to work with mentioned late payments during a chance phone call. Another contact asked if I was still involved because things seemed different lately. I didn't investigate. It wasn't my place anymore. Months passed. Then one evening, a number I didn't recognize appeared on my phone. It was Daniel, one of the warehouse supervisors who had been with the company almost since the beginning. We spoke for a few minutes. He didn't say anything dramatic, just mentioned that staff turnover was getting high. Some clients had left. Management decisions felt confused. I listened quietly. When he asked if I planned on coming back, I told him no. After that call, the updates started arriving more frequently. Not from my family, never from them, but through industry conversations. Missed deliveries, contract disputes. A client I had worked with for 5 years, suddenly moving their business elsewhere. You start recognizing patterns when you've run a company long enough, and the pattern forming around mine wasn't a healthy one. The first call from my family came almost a year after I left. My mother. Her voice sounded careful in the way people speak when they are pretending everything is normal. "We were hoping you might stop by the office sometime," she said. "Emily could really use your perspective." Perspective. That word carried a lot of weight. I told her I'd think about it. More calls followed over the next few weeks. The tone changed slowly from casual to urgent. One night Emily called directly. She didn't bother with small talk. "We're in a difficult position," she said. "Some of the systems you set up, we're having trouble maintaining them." I asked a few questions. The answers came out unevenly. Clients had left faster than expected. Debt from a recent expansion was putting pressure on cash flow. Several key employees had resigned within the same quarter. None of it sounded dramatic individually. But together, It painted a clear picture. The company wasn't just struggling, it was losing stability. Then something else entered the situation. About a week later, I received an email from a restructuring advisor at the bank that handled the company's primary credit line. They weren't asking me to return. They were asking whether I would be willing to consult on a recovery proposal. The bank had reached out to me directly because my original documentation still listed me as the founding operational architect of the company. That was the moment everything shifted. Up until then, my family had been speaking as if this were still an internal matter. A temporary crisis, but once the bank became involved, the conversation moved into a different space entirely. Formal, measured, accountable. I agreed to meet with the advisor. The numbers were worse than I expected. Debt restructuring deadlines, supplier disputes, contract penalties beginning to accumulate. Without a clear recovery plan, the company would likely face liquidation within the year. That evening my parents called again. This time the desperation was harder to hide. "You built this," my father said. "You understand how it works." Emily's voice came through the speakerphone behind him. "We just need you to come back and help stabilize things." Stabilize. The same word Jason had used in another life, another family argument. I sat quietly for a moment before answering. "I'll help under one condition." Silence followed. "The company would have to go through full restructuring," I said. "Independent oversight, new governance, operational control assigned professionally." I let the sentence settle. That kind of restructuring meant something very specific. It meant transparency. It meant outside advisors. And most importantly, it meant that leadership titles assigned through family decisions would no longer matter. My sister understood immediately. "You're asking us to give up control," she said. "No," I replied calmly. "I'm asking you to save the company." The line stayed quiet for a long time, because the choice in front of them wasn't really about me. It was about whether they were willing to acknowledge how things had actually unfolded. If they refused, the company would likely collapse within months. If they agreed, the business might survive. But the story they had told about who built it and who led it would finally have to change. For the first time since I walked away, the future of the company wasn't resting on whether I returned. It was resting on whether my family was ready to face the truth they had avoided from the beginning.